We don't need this paragraph. Let's in its place put a form. And we'll put an input in there, type equals text. Input, an empty element, right? There's no closing tag. It's already complaining. Expected corresponding JSX closing tag for input. You must close every tag in any version of XML. So we'll self-close because a closing tag with input doesn't make any sense. And let's add a button. A submit type button. Sign me up. There it is. Everything's on the page. Looking good. So let's make it do something. Now, when I first saw React a couple years ago, it grossed me the heck out. Mixing JavaScript and HTML, really super gross and against everything I'd been taught. You want your behavior and your structure separate. So you have to kind of switch your mind into component mode. So the idea is you break the page apart into many, many tiny self-contained pieces. So realistically, probably the form would be its own component. Heck, the input might be its own component even inside that. And each one would have tiny little pieces of behavior and style associated with them. So what you have is a bunch of reusable, reasonably portable components whose behavior is all self-contained. And when you think about it that way, it's not quite as gross mixing the JavaScript and the HTML together, and even the CSS. So it is a new way of thinking. So if you're someone who's done a lot of web design and stuff, it may seem gross, especially this next part. So to attach an event handler, we don't use add event listener, excuse me. Back in the dark ages of the web, the even darker ages of the web, we didn't have add event listener at all. We had to put it right in the HTML. And with React, we put it right in the JSX. So if I want something to happen when I submit the form, I add an onSubmit. Capitalization is important. The S is capitalized. In HTML, it's actually usually not. So I could set it to something. Now the quotes can only take a string, and I need to actually pass a function in there. So I use the curly braces. But what do I put? I could just put an arrow function in there. Say alert, submitted. Try submitting it. Yay! It works. To you this time. That is actually how we would wait for an event to occur with React using JSX. So let's make it do a little bit more than that. Let's actually make a named method. So inside my class, I'm going to add another method right up here. I'll call it handle submit. And although it isn't a strict rule, it is a strong convention that render is always the last method in your class. So please do that because everyone else does, and that's where everyone will look for yours. So render should be the very last method in your class. So now I have handle submit up here. We'll say alert submitted to a separate named method. What do you think I'd put inside the the curly braces down here to make it call that? I want to call this method when I submit the form. One more time? Yeah. This dot handle submit. Right? It's just another method in the same class. This dot handle submit. Not this dot handle submit parentheses, right? Yeah, submitted to a separate name method. Yay. Yay, it works. Cool. So how about we actually change something on the page when we do that? Let's do something really creative that we've never done before. Let's add it to an unordered list. Okay. We'll keep it simple first. We'll add it to a paragraph. A little simple. Just one item at a time, not a whole list of things. So what do we need to do? Well, now I have some data that I need to keep track of. Whatever I submitted, I need to store someplace and have a place in the DOM, someplace on the page, that I keep in sync with this data. We did this with vanilla JavaScript with this.dynos. And he told you that we can do that with React too, using something called state. So state, data that we're going to change and update, and that we may want to sync with the DOM potentially. So we have to initialize state in the constructor. So we add a constructor at the top. And remember, we're inheriting from React component. As you might imagine, the built-in component class in React has some stuff that it does in its constructor. So we need to make sure that that constructor still gets run. So we call super, not unlike other languages that have inheritance. Call super to make sure the other constructor still runs. And then we can initialize our state. This.state equals an object. And we'll add a key Acrobat name, which we will set to an empty string to start. And then the idea is, when we call handle submit, we'll change that. For right now, let's not worry about what we type into the form. Let's just hard code something. And remember, we don't do this.state.acrobat name to change it. Did you mention why? So the problem with that is that if there's something on the page that's synced to that, if this thing changes, React needs to know about that change so it can re-render the DOM, or the portion of the DOM that would need to change. And if you do it this way, it doesn't. It doesn't know about that. So we use a method called setState. That will actually trigger a refresh of the portions of the page that need to change. So we set state, and we pass it in an object with the key we want to change, Acrobat name, and the new value. So let's just set it to who's looking acrobatic today. Marshall's looking pretty acrobatic. So we initialize state to this object that has nothing in it except this key Acrobat name, which is an empty string. And then we want to set state. We pass in an object with the same key, different string. And then down here in our JSX, inside this paragraph, you may remember he showed us we can just put curly braces and then put a JavaScript expression in there. And that could be something like this.state.acrobat name. And that should work. So right now there's nothing on there, right? If we initialize state to something like Cameron, there it is. And then when we click the button, we want it to change to Marshall. Uh-oh. What happened? We didn't prevent default. We still have to do that. So we still get an object passed in to our event handler. Strictly speaking, this is not a pure DOM event object. It's called a synthetic event. It's a special React wrapper around a real event, but it has most of the same properties and methods. So we can still say ev.preventDefault, and it does what we want. Let's try again. Click the button. Something bad's still happening. Why is it bad? What did I do? This.state.acrobat name. Yeah, the same thing I did last time. What did he say? Right? You knew that was going to happen. What's he mean? Bind what? Bind our feet together so we can't walk? Bind this, right? So what do you think this is inside this method here? Say again? This is what? Well, the event target is what you mean, right? No, I didn't actually click the button. I hit enter on my keyboard. It's the form, right? You might think so. That would make a whole lot of sense. But we're in React's world now. We play by React's rules. And React doesn't necessarily want to make a whole lot of sense. Let's see if we just say alert this. Let's submit the form. Undefined. So that old rule about this being bound to the event target, when you have an event listener, event handler, yeah, it doesn't apply in React. This is undefined inside an event handler. But we can still bind it. So we could do that right down here. There are a lot of ways to do this thing. This is the one I'm going to show you right now, but we'll be doing it different ways in the future. This.handleSubmit.bind this. And why does that work? I could bind it to anything I wanted here, right? I could put the name of another variable. I could hard code a string in there. And that's what this would be bound to. But what I want is whatever this is on this line inside render, which is the object, the class, or the instance of the class. So if I do that, then this.setState should hopefully be the right thing. Hit sign me up, and Cameron becomes Marshall. Yay. We'll initialize it to blank, though. Now, it'd be more interesting if it changed it to what was actually in the form, right? So let's do that.